Let's say you get into a bakery products. Bread, आज सबने खाया आपने bread खाया? If you enter into bakery products, how much is the barrier to enter? What education is needed to start your own bakery? Huh? Not much? No, anywhere in the world not much. Right? Bakery चालू करने के लिए education. So there is, but चालू मैं बोल रहा हूँ business चालू करने के लिए. Okay. So how is it a high barrier to enter industry or it's a low barrier to enter? Spices का भाई spices या even spice powder या masala, high barrier or low barrier? Low barrier. And that unfortunately is a story with food industry. But in food industry again there could be high barrier kind of things, nutraceuticals for example, health supplements, functional foods. And since you come from a technical background, you need to focus on that. And like I have here, the last part was the regulatory compliance. You have the knowledge of that. जो वो उसको नहीं है, वो bread वाले को नहीं है. The science or the technology that you are talking about, how you can implement that in your product, how you will differentiate yourself. Right? Typically, bakery products are all having gluten, but now people are moving towards gluten-free. So that you have, that he doesn't have. जो traditionally अपने बाप दादा परदादा से वो सीख के आया हुआ है, he doesn't know all those small things. So that can be your barrier. That can be your way to compete with some of them. So regulatory compliance is also very important. So when I talk about nutraceutical, and I'm sure FSSAI, you must be familiar with FSSAI and the rules and regulations of that. So उसमें एक nutraceutical का regulation है. And in that nutraceutical regulation, there are 300 botanicals that are approved to be used in this. So why can't we use them? In fact, I am sure 23 was International Year of Millets. So आपने भी बहुत सुना होगा millets के बारे में. Maybe थोड़ा ज़्यादा ही overdose ही हुआ रहेगा. But recently I was, my mother is also a professor and from food background. You can look her up later on. So she said that she heard Ayurvedic doctor in one of the talks say that there are some of the millets which will actually control your lifestyle diseases, especially diabetes. But there are certain millets which can actually prevent diabetes from happening. Right? So there is a lot of this because lifestyle diseases is going to be a very big thing. Diabetes, hypertension, and God knows what all other things. Again, I'm not an expert in nutrition. But that is a big problem that India is going to face. So even personalized nutrition is going to become big. Right? What is okay for me may not be okay for you. I'm a vegetarian, so my protein intake is probably much lesser than most of you here. So my nutrition and my supplements should be different from yours. We cannot all take the same thing, right? So that again could be a very big thing. Yeah. So think in that sense. What are the problem statements? Secondly, whether there is a market or a need. Also, your products, whether I call to say whether they are nice to have or a must have. So I'll again give you an example of cell phones. My parents bought their first cell phone back in 99 or 2000. Back then it was a nice to have, right? आप cell phone हो तो भी call किसको करोगे? Nobody else had a cell phone. Landline पे करोगे तो nobody's home. So what is the use of that cell phone? And I don't know if you guys are familiar, but back then you had to pay for incoming also, and it used to be 16 rupees a minute. वो ज़माने का 16 रुपए, मतलब आज का 50 से 100 रुपए पकड़ो, 1 minute incoming, outgoing sales. Of course, Indians are very smart, so that's where we invented the missed call system and 1 ring, 2 ring, 3 ring, 4 ring system and all that, right? So, but jokes apart, it was a nice to have back then. But today, if I tell you that I don't have a cell phone, आपको लगेगा मैं कोई तो पागल हूँ, right? And not just cell phone, but a smartphone with all those other apps, social media apps, and all the other apps, right? So the same thing which was a nice to have has now become must have. So identify like personalized nutrition. Today you might think it's a nice to have, but believe me, next 10 years or 20 years it may become a must have. Electric vehicles, I think today it's nice to have, but maybe in 20-30 years it will become a must have. So you need to predict which thing is going to become a nice to have versus a must have. Right? Then of course finance, and I think you had some sessions on finance. So typically you raise money through two ways: a debt, which is bank loan, and equity, which is, if you have watched Shark Tank, you must know that there are investors who invest. So these are the broad two ways how you can lend money. Banks are also nowadays very proactive, and then there are hundreds and thousands and maybe millions of schemes trying to promote entrepreneurship and whatever, women entrepreneurship, and then in food and so on and so forth. I don't want to go too much into that, but I can tell you that there is enough money available. Like, I work with investors, I work with a lot of startups. That is one of my core business, where I help startups raise money. I'm not finding the right startups. I've made more investors than good startups. Right? So if you have startup, which is again all these things, you have a unique idea, you're a first mover, you have a barrier, it's a must have versus a nice to have, there's a large enough market, I can guarantee you investors will chase you. But if you are making all Me Too products, आपने भी वही sliced bread की bakery डाली, so do you think an investor will get excited to invest in your product? Yeah, so think in that way. But I can promise you that finance is available, and it is definitely not the hardest part. It is hard. I'm not saying it is very easy कि भाई लोग ऐसा इधर पैसा लेके बैठे. I'm not saying that, but it is definitely not the hardest part on this slide. It could be second or the third hard part. And if your things are good, you will get finance. Your friends will fund you. Your family will fund you. Your parents will fund you, right? So don't pull yourself back just thinking कि अरे पैसा कहाँ से लाओ and all that. That technology is something that you should use, especially because you come from technical background. So extraction, right? And I would like to give an example. And since we have been talking about valorization and all that, I personally don't like talking about big words, because it's okay to use big words, but you have to understand the basic behind it. So in nature, nothing is useless. Everything has value, right? And everything will have value for different reasons. So for example, skins will have some value. So I always like to give an example of mango processing. So when you do mango processing, almost 50% of it is waste as far as edible human consumption is concerned. Right? It will be your skins and what we call stones. Right? But if you think about it, do we eat mango with skins? You must have seen people eating mango with skins. Yeah, or especially when it is raw, hairy जब होता है तब तो we eat. So even the ripe mangoes I've seen people eat. I mean, I don't know how they eat it, but they eat. So it is edible. Yeah. Similarly, that the stone that you have inside that again there is butter, mango butter. As of shea butter, I don't know. You might be knowing more than I do. But cocoa butter, shea butter, there are so many other butters that we are using in cosmetics or as food and all that. Similarly, mango butter is there. And there's a shell oil also. So everything, the way nature is designed, everything has value. You need to understand how to derive the value of it. And my take always is that first you have to see whether you can make it into a human feed. We don't call it feed, we call it food, but for lack of better word, whether you can convert it into a human feed. Because as human का खाना कुछ भी बनाओगे, you can get around 100 rupees a kilo. Right? I'll give you a simple example of rice bran. You must be familiar with rice bran, right? So जब राइस का ये होता है, तो वो निकल जाता है, उसका जो एंडोस्पर्म रहता है उसमें जाता है. You know how much the rice bran is selling for? So you have the rice, आपने milling कर दिया, और bran separate out हो गया, और आपका ये polished rice आ गया, right? So brown rice which has that bran on it is more expensive than the white rice. Yes. Now that I've removed the bran, and now you have the polished rice. So the bran should be more valuable, na? But do you know what the price is of that rice bran? It's selling at around 15 rupees a kilo. It's selling at a price less than the polished rice or the wood. Of course, there are reasons why it's selling, but don't you think that is the real healthy part? And it is going for either for cattle feed, or it is either going for this non-edible oil. Of course, rice bran oil बनता है, but rice bran oil is happening only where the oil, the rice production is high. So in Chhattisgarh and some. But like Maharashtra is also a large producer of rice, but we don't have a single rice bran factory. So Konkan belt में जहाँ पे rice होता है, there are like hundreds of rice mills. the bran is just not taken to rice bran oil extraction, right? So rice bran is sold as is to as cattle feed. But that is the one that can be used to make your biscuits, maybe some bakery products, yeah. And typically wheat की एलर्जी होती है, everything else की एलर्जी होती है, but rice का एलर्जी वाला आदमी आप मेरे को लाके दिखाओ, नहीं होता है, right? So why can't you make gluten-free biscuits from this rice bran? आपका raw material 15 रुपए किलो हो गया. Wheat bran nowadays, fortunately, has become a little popular. You have started seeing wheat bran biscuits in the market. I think ITC or a few others have launched it. But similarly, groundnut. When you extract oil out of the groundnut, right? It has almost 48-49% oil in it. Typically, 42% gets extracted if you do mechanical pressing, unless you do solvent extraction. So now what you are left originally had 15% protein content. Now effectively has 30% protein content. Because आधा तो ऑयल निकल गया, अभी जो बचा डबल हो गया ना. Protein content effectively is now 30%. So can't you make high protein, low fat chickies out of it? आज वो groundnut de-oil cake का क्या हो रहा है? Again cattle feed को ही, मतलब वो जो white meat वाले को जाता है, हमारे यहाँ पे वो सब goat farming वाले लेके जाते हैं. पेंट बोलते हैं हम लोग महाराष्ट्र में. Yeah, but can't you make some really high value products out of it? I'm just putting in some ideas. I know it's not easy, इसीलिए आज तक किसी ने किया नहीं है ना. But easy नहीं है इसलिए तो आपको करना है. Easy है तो मोट कहाँ है? Easy है तो बैरियर कहाँ है? Easy नहीं है, but आपके पास solution है. That's why you are going to do it. Curcumin extraction, how many of you are familiar now? You know what curcumin is? Yes, हल्दी से. वो विको टर्मरिक तो बेचारा 50 साल से हमको बताते आ रहा है ना कि it's good for your skin and all that, या फिर yeah. So now they are extracting curcumin, they are exporting, they are making a lot of money. Similarly, curcumin is not water soluble, it's oil soluble. इसलिए कभी भी हमको दूध में हल्दी मिला के पिलाया जाता है, पानी में मिला के नहीं पिलाया जाता है. So there is science behind it. जैसे आपने बोला वो बेकरी वाले का साइंस है. Unfortunately, he has not learned science, but he has learned it from traditional wisdom से वो सीखा हुआ है. Yeah. So anyway, so now you have the traditional wisdom and you have the science and technology. How you can blend it together and make certain things out of it. That mango skins that I was talking about, it also has good properties. And if it is mixed with animal feed, it gives a lot of good bowel movements and all that to the buffaloes and the cows and all that. Right? So small percentage of it mixed will have a lot of. It's a health supplement in a way. But आपने उसको, you have to also be able to know how to brand something. आप उसको कचरा बोल के देखोगे तो कचरे के भाव में जाएगा. But आपने उसको सब value added product करके देखोगे तो you will get value. Okay, so these are some of the things, and that's why I want you especially to focus on technology. And like I gave example of industrial revolution or the Western world, and you coming from technical background, this is your strength. This will be the moat for you. Right? Then human capital again is becoming very important. Means you and me as employees will also be. कितना टाइम है मेरे पास? करिए ना. आप हाथ ऊपर में रुक जाओ ना. Because I can go on forever, because I'm still on the first slide only, but I can finish it quickly also. So anyway, so human capital, human employees. पुराने ज़माने में वो काम करता था रामू काका 40 साल 50 साल एक ही कंपनी में एक ही मालिक के साथ. आज के ज़माने में कोई भी रामू काका अवेलेबल नहीं है मार्केट में. 2-3 years your employees keep changing, right? So managing them, holding them, looking at them as a capital is very, very important. Next is your supply chain. So especially if you want to go into a manufacturing segment in food, supply chain is very important. Because आपका जो raw material है, वो regional और seasonal है, right? Regional and seasonal. Onions ले लो, Maharashtra, that area you will get, right? Potatoes ले लो, again you will get in Gujarat and some parts of UP. Wheat, rice, again you have Haryana and the Punjab of the world, right? Sugarcane in UP and some in Maharashtra. Mango processing, a lot happens in here. Similarly in Kashmir, or in all the hilly states you have different. And again there is a season associated. ऐसा नहीं कि साल भर मिलता है. So you really need to understand the regional, seasonal aspect of some of the raw material that you are going to use before you get into processing. So let's say sea buckthorn, right? ऐसा नहीं कि साल भर आपको मिलते रहेगा. या any other dose, even apple for that matter. मिलता ही 21 बार है. You are able to preserve it, that's why you are able to eat it for 8 months, 12 months. But crop आपका एक ही बार आता है साल में, भले ही 2-3 महीना, but crop. So you have to understand the regional, seasonal aspect. And also, supply chain in India is very expensive if you compare to the Western world. Typically, if you are buying anything for 100 rupees, in India, almost 23 rupees is spent on the supply chain. Transportation, like what we call first mile delivery, means from the farmer to the first aggregator, then the logistics, transportation, warehousing, then the last mile delivery, reaching it to you. Whereas in the US, that number is only 7%. And for that, actually, government is taking one initiative, which I think is going to be a very revolutionizing initiative. It's called ONDC. ONDC. Okay. So there they are trying to bring all of them. So it will be the likes of Amazon and Flipkart on it. It will be the likes of your what is that? Just Dial on it. So everything. So all buyer sellers, they are all there. So what that will do is that will bring about a better price discovery. तो आपको अगर हल्दी कहीं से खरीदना है या महाराष्ट्र में जो बैठा है उसको एप्पल्स हिमाचल या कश्मीर से खरीदना है तो एवरीथिंग इज अवेलेबल देयर. सो ही हैज द farmer over there, he has the transport guys over there, he has the packaging guy there, he has everything. So he can choose and get the best price and get the thing delivered to him. So this ONDC is, according to me, will be game changer. Like you know how UPI was, like आज आप cash carry नहीं करते, UPI पे ही हो जाता है. Who would have thought? Otherwise, if you see US went from cash to plastic to credit card, and then all those things, online banking. अभी भी वहाँ पे UPI नहीं है. बीच में फ्रांस ने मांगा है हमसे UPI, but we went directly from cash to UPI. Right? So some of these revolutionary things are happening, especially in the supply chain, because probably government has also realized that this is a very big challenge, very big problem, very big lacuna. And I'm sure you must have heard about all these post-harvest losses. I have been hearing since my birth, I would say, the 30% losses we got. Your TV, your print, your